tell me where we started, how we got started with the academy, what was the beginning stages of it, and kind of where that took you to current day.
Oh man, I think I started in May. I initially started because I felt a little bit, I guess, not kind of on my own, doing my own thing because I was most people around me aren't really thinking about debt. They're not really thinking about, they're thinking about wealth, but wealth is different. New York City people just hustle to hustle. They're not really, there's no real
That's
plan on
right.
sometimes for it. They're not thinking about a long term plan. They're kind of just grinding. And I know that space well. I'm not interested in that space. So I think I was looking for community initially. Um, I had some good habits. I had my debt pay off already. I was already kind of putting aside a large amount of money, investing in that. I think while I was doing that, I was kind of learning about, the better ways to do that. But I was kind of set in terms of my habits.
Mm-hmm.
Just needed, I wanted to be a part of a space that was more consistent around the things that I wanted to get done. I think that what I learned was that I'm a learner and doer. So I don't necessarily just go, go, go. I learn and I do. I learn and I do kind of chunk things. That's like my pattern. So I think that one of my goals was to really get my business and my personal clearly separated.
Mm-hmm.
And inside like my budgeting equipment, I was really keeping everything in one thing. So I would see all
Oh man,
my
that's a disastrous thing waiting to happen.
and I knew that, but I'll wait until quarterly. I'll wait until annually to kind of begin to then break things down further.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so so it just helped me to really separate and kind of really get clear about what I'm bringing in as a self-employed person, what I'm bringing in, what am I bringing in after my expenses, after my inventory, things like that. I'm in the planning business, so most of my stuff is really around materials, around clients. It's not really taxable goods per se, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really more things that organizing my clients a little bit better. What my horizon is in terms of their payments, my invoicing structure with them. Really having more control about that up front was one of my goals. In order to do that, I had to separate my personal and my business. I had to kind of say, okay, I know I want to make this amount of money for the next 3 months, and I'm going to situate my clients this way, versus not being able to see that clearly because I have everything kind of in a gross format. So that was helpful.
And you're teaching this, right? The local area now, right?
Yeah, I think probably like a year and a half. I started in California doing some like workshop stuff, specifically around debt because I've had success around that and
Mm-hmm.
in extreme situations. So really, no one can tell me they can't do it because I've done it from a rehab. I've done
Your
it from
story, your story is
yeah
incredible, man. Like I think you were on a webinar when you first shared that story with me.
yeah
Um, I was in awe, like of
yeah
where you came from to where you are now. And like that is inspiring. And if you're comfortable with it, man, sharing that a little bit here would be awesome.
yeah
Like for somebody that doesn't believe they can do stuff, like they don't believe they can do it.
yeah. So I think that for me, had a pretty bad accident. And I was prominent in my industry. I was a school designer for about 10 to 15 years. Making good money, really kind of coasting, social life, personal life, everything. Had a skydiving. I went skydiving for my birthday. Had a really bad accident, one that really no one thought I was going to recover from. And for a long time, I didn't think most people didn't think I was going to recover. I always knew I was going to recover. Honestly, I had to stop telling that mistruth. I never really doubted that, but most people thought I wasn't going to recover.
Sure.
Um, and I also was in the litigation. I was suing the FAA. Who sues the FAA? And really, that's a big suit. So I
Mm-hmm.
was under investigation from their side. They're going to investigate you. You're going to investigate them for like 7 years. So really, in terms of like, there was a lot of things at one time happening between being in hospitals and rehabs, spinal cord injury as a result of the fall, and also brain injury as a result of the fall. So just me in general, like I was trying to get better, but also trying to maintain all the things you have to maintain when you're sick. You have to maintain your medical bills, your record, your power of attorney. All those things were not always in my control. So I had to clean up all those things after a while. So initially, I had no control of any of my finances, any of my anything, while learning to speak again, while learning to use my hands again, while learning to write again. At the same time, then also managing medical bills and managing that kind of situation, and then also being in a big litigation. So I had those things happening all at one time. And I'm finally, at one point, I'll probably say about 2019, I got the ability to to speak better and to just use my body a little bit differently, more independent. I went from like a level 3 rehab to a level 1 rehab, which is more acute trauma rehab to more, everyday outpatient. When I got to a point where I could really take care of myself, I wanted to get rid of my debt. I had all this medical debt. Although people say you don't have to pay your medical debt, they always say, you can escape it, you can write it off. I didn't really want to go through that route. I really wanted to just get rid of it because I didn't want anybody kind of looking over my shoulder, being in my accounts, asking that's what comes with that. When you start to apply for things that are out of your control, people ask more questions and you have less control of what you have going on. So I really wanted to have independence, through and through. So I paid 6 figures of debt off probably in a year and a half. I stayed in the house. I didn't go out much. I didn't socialize much. I really would put
Six
head down.
figures of debt. How much? That obviously can range. What was that number?
Yeah, so I split into two. So I had medical debt I had medical debt, I had student loans, I had personal debt, personal lifestyle debt. So my medical debt was which I got some of it forgiven, but it was probably $365,000, and then I had $106,622 in personal debt, and that includes my student loans. So so I paid that fully off. And my medical debt, I always include that because people say, well, you didn't pay that off, but I went through the process. I can tell someone how to
100%.
navigate medical debt, right? Cash debt, $106,000, medical debt around 365. But I know the process and all the different ins and outs of the systems that I had to go through for 2 or 3 years just to kind of figure that out. So I have that.
You should teach the academy that process. I would love to have you on like on a Monday call and walk through that, what that looked like, because I know a lot of people deal with that.
Yeah, so I would love to. So for me, it was just I think that the thought that you can't really pay it off it's a big number, right? But the big number, when you really chunk it and you really get momentum on it, the excitement kind of builds when you start to see it go away. That's kind of what I found. Like at first, definitely it was daunting. Definitely, I can't. It's going to take forever to do this because you really don't understand time and money. You really kind of try to always figure it out, but it's hard to equate those things. But once I got the momentum, once I started to see my opportunities to work more, see my opportunities to bring more money in, I had a debt payoff kind of strategy. I had a document that I used to pay my debt off. I really kept track of things. I started budgeting clearly. I started seeing my numbers go down. I started seeing my lifestyle change in terms of what I was going to spend my money on. When you start to get that final notice, that gives you a
fun
feeling. And yeah. So yeah, that's the exciting part. So fully out of that, and then back to the question about the academy. Really, joining us to kind of take the next level. Like going through something that has more structure. So I was on my own doing my thing, but now I'll be able to go through it in a more structured way. The personal versus business thing was really big for me. Now I can literally see what I have coming. I know my numbers like the back of my hand. I have a clear understanding of my numbers, both business and personal. Before I would know them, but I wouldn't know them minus the details of expense. I would know them in gross, right? But now I can tell the details. So I got that from that. My tax planning, I've always been really afraid of taxes. Like I always tell people, I'm very honest about that. And I really was kind of avoidant because when I was injured, I didn't really know how to manage that. No one ever told me when you get injured, you get sick, what do you do about taxes? What do you do about what you owe the IRS? What do you do about filing? So I had to go back and file all my stuff from scratch, which was very, very new. That was hard for me. Because you can really say, well, I was sick. I'm gonna hide. I'm just gonna say, you know what? From 2014 to 2021, I was sick. Why should I pay any taxes? But I went back and I filed those things, and I made my payment concessions with the IRS. I started paying things off. So that was a breakthrough for me over the last 6 months. Really getting right with the IRS, because I had such a gap of my time where I didn't have any income, but I had a lot of bills and I had a lot of filings that I had to then put forward. And I could have filed bankruptcy. So I had a lot of things going on before I got injured. Businesses, real estate, that I had to totally liquidate and totally, remove in order to get better. So, so all that stuff was no one had a formula for that. So I had to figure that out and kind of walk through those details. But I'm on the other side of it now. I have a tax planning strategy. I have a consistent payoff strategy. So that was my number 2 goal, was the tax planning piece, I think. And my third piece was just to continue with my allocation to my investment And I told you, I'm really fanatical about it. You know, I treat it like if I have any money, I'm paying my investment off before I'm paying anything else off.
Love
So,
it.
so I'm between probably $4,500 and $5,000 a month in my investments now.
That's incredible. So you were, this is inspiring. I love your story, but like, were you always like as gung ho and like adamant about getting your finances right and just being like a proactive type of person? Was that always in your nature, or did something spark that side of you at one point?
I've always been competitive. I've been an athlete my whole life. So the competitive side, once it goes on, it goes on. Like I don't
Mhm.
have the issue of keeping it on. But I grew up, you know, I always say I grew up very culturally rich. I grew up in a very like culturally rich environment, very good people, but definitely very poor.
Yeah.
Um, so I think for me, it was realizing that I told Heather this. I realized that my family's idea about money wasn't my idea about money any longer. Like I had a choice whether I could keep that idea, which was kind of like I come from a very nonprofit, generous, service orientated environment, but
Love it.
most people don't have any money. Most people are, you know, money is seen as a negative thing. It's seen as an evil thing, a thing that is overwhelming to people. It takes over your character, right? So for
Yeah.
me, it can, but for me, the nuance of money was what I wanted to understand better. I didn't want to repeat the kind of same money stories that I always heard growing up.
Yep. Yep.
Even when I was making money, you know, in my career, I still had that in the back of my mind. I was making money, I was giving a lot of money away. Uh,
Yeah.
so, you
How
know,
did you unlearn that? How did you make yourself unlearn that? Was Heather, what was Heather's experience? Was a lot of it from Heather? Was it before, after?
it was before. It was really just it was really just realizing that you have to one, when you're recovering with something, you realize to take care of yourself. Like you
Mhm.
realize people come and go. You know, the friends you've had are not gonna be the friends you're gonna keep. That's a hard reality when you get injured, right? The girlfriend that liked you when you were dancing salsa every day is not the girlfriend who's gonna like you when you're in a wheelchair. It's just a reality of what's real. It's a hard reality. So for
I'm
me,
sure that's a crazy reality when you
crazy
actually
reality.
see that transition.
Yeah, and you know, as somebody who's athletic and takes care of themselves, when for an athlete who, like, for example, gets hurt, you realize things shift very fast, right? Your reality shifts very fast. So that's similar to me. Like it was a shift I had to understand, and money was something I could not avoid. So for me, it was
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm not going to be, you know, I can go to a nursing home and kind of wither, or I can try to fight and reestablish a mindset that I need to have, and that's where the money mindset came in. Really, I need to take care of myself.
That makes me want to run through a wall right now.
Yeah, I need to focus on what it takes to take care of myself. I need to feed myself. I don't have any, you know, my security blankets are not there. You know, when you get injured, you know, you also, the insurance companies get really funny. Everybody gets funny. So you have to have a mentality about keeping money, you know, about investing and stashing cash. So for me, I had to like figure out that that took me to shift. It shifted very fast. I had to keep some stuff for myself. I had to become more like a squirrel rather
Yep.
than, you know, and become like hibernating with my money rather than like, and not having like having cash in my house, but just having the ability to know where my money is rather than letting things kind of rule me and control me,
Mhm.
which was the norm. That was what could really happen. That was happening. So I think that was a big thing for me, shifting that. And then I would say also it was realizing that I was really burning cash just with trying to have a lifestyle, you know, and knowing that I had a chance to also reset my lifestyle. You know, one thing that I really believe in, that you have a choice of how you want to live, and that there's a lot of reasons why you can choose different. Like there's family, there's friends, there's social, there's your money story. But at the end of the day, it's really your choice. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
it's really how you want to set yourself up. And I also realized I didn't want to be like a 70-year-old, 80-year-old man, you know, depending on anybody. You know, I wanted to really have, if I have a choice or a trajectory of 40 years or 50 years to do something, you know, I can definitely shift, you know, my lifestyle, my life by really focusing. So I took my habits of, I'm really fanatical about discipline, and then I also took, you know, this opportunity to reset and put them all together. And
I love it,
so
man. I need you like around on my shoulder. I just need to carry you
I
around.
mean, you're around on my shoulder now. I think the hardest thing for me now is like it's it's just time, right? Because I've only been in this space of like of wellness probably 2 years now. You know, I've been back to work a
Yeah.
year. So during the academy was really also I was getting back to work. So when I
Sure.
think my goal was to get back to work. I wish I had more time. I wish I was like, okay, when I was 30 and I had more momentum. But I think that what I also know is that my speed wouldn't have been the same at my 30-year-old age. You know,
Sure.
I'm at now, my experience is now I have a speed and I have a aggressiveness that I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't have my experience, you know, my injury or my, you know, my lifestyle change.
You use your disadvantage to your advantage, and like that's
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
that is the definition of success. Like I am crazy about that kind of story, and that's why I talk about it all the time. Actually, like IG lives, like I bring up your story all the time
yeah,
because it's so enlightening for people that are the woe is me, the victim, like life's happening to me. Like you had everything in the world
yeah,
happen to you, and
yeah,
you overcame it because you decided. And you, like you said earlier, it was a choice. And
yeah,
like when I say that, like people just like sometimes it's like, nah, no, it's not. It's just it's what happens. Like the politics,
yeah,
the parents, the bosses. It's just what we were given, and it's just
yeah.
such a sad mentality. But that's why I love your story, man. Super excited. I'm privileged that you're even in the academy. I think it's awesome, man. So I appreciate you talking to us for a little bit today and sharing your story.